Hello and welcome to ChinnyVision. This time, it's Pitfighter. I am going to give a little warning before this ChinnyVision because I know some of you watch ChinnyVision with younger kids, which is a really fantastic thing. And if you don't know Pitfighter, it's a game that features digitised graphics of people beating each other up. Now, okay, by modern standards, it's absolutely nothing, but if you're not familiar with the game, I want to highlight that first of all. So Pitfighter is a 1990 game by Tengen/Atari, ported to the home systems by Domark and Tech. Yes, indeed. And so we're going to start off on the Amiga. I don't have an ST version running. I've struggled to get it running on the ST. Tried several floppy images. My ST was having none of it. So I only got the Amiga here from the 16-bits. Nice digitised graphics. And very true to the arcade from what I can see. They've used the same assets. So that's quite nice. They've had access to all that. And you get all these silly animations. Apparently these people were all picked from gyms around California by Atari to star in the game. They're not actors. They're just people that have been picked for their looks. So we've got Buzz, Ty or Kato to choose from. Not the Kato from the Pink Panther films. That would be highly entertaining. So we're going to pick Kato. Don't have a second player here, so you can play two-player mode against the computer. So you've got two fighters v the AI. And off we go. We're fighting the Executioner. And this is the second arcade game ever, or second arcade fighter ever, I believe, to have digitised graphics. And they've been ported here to the Amiga fairly faithfully. The graphics scale around. So they're 2D graphics, but you're working in almost a pseudo 3D environment. It's scaling in a similar way to, I guess, Space Harrier is actually 2D, but it looks 3D. This is 2D, but you're in a 3D, not a 3D world, but you can move back, forth, left and right. There's various moves, as with all fighting games, you can use. It's difficult to work out what some of them are at times. Some of the later levels, there's weapons and things you can use as well. I've just forwarded this on. They're called KO. This is the ludicrous animation you get at the end of each level. You get raised up on a forklift truck. And now something I'm not particularly comfortable with, you're fighting a female fighter who, well, yeah, it's... And now you've got knives and things, and it's, yeah... I just don't... There's a certain thing that makes this unpleasant. And we're moving over to the C64 to see how the C64 is going to cope with this. We're going to have digitised graphics, or we can have sprites. Let's see what happens. So we've lost the animated introductions, although we still have these digitised graphics here on the 64. So as I was saying, yeah, it's a bit... I find this a bit of a difficult game. I find it a little bit unpleasant. It's one thing playing games like Arcade Plus and Yi Kung Fu, which are cartoonish in their violence. This is the first game, really, where it looks all realistic, although that said, here we are on the C64, and it looks like any other C64 game, so immediately it becomes perhaps a little bit more acceptable, because it just looks like a standard beat-em-up, except you can move back and forwards. So there's a little bit of a novelty there, although there's not really any scaling as such. You can move up and down, left and right, but it doesn't scale like the other versions. Graphics aren't... They're not digitised, and therefore there's no... Are they, or... I don't know. They're pretty ugly for drawn sprites. And I don't think they are digitised. They're designed to look like they've perhaps been a little more realistic than standard C64 sprites. All looks a bit rubbish. Totally studly. I mean, this makes it the forklift sequence even more ludicrous. Move us on to the third fight. Now we've got some objects to throw around, a barbecue and some kind of box. I think it's going to be a bar stool in a box. Actually, all of the boxes have been thrown at me and I've been knocked out. Now the barbecue's been thrown at me. It's all a bit average, really. Not even average. It's clumsy. It's ponderous. You think of all the free-flowing fighting in IK Plus, and then you come to this, and it's all a bit clunky and it doesn't even feel like authentic Pitfighter, although that's actually no bad thing. Oh, I've been thrown to the floor. I think, why are they bothering to do this on the C64, really? The arcade game's not that good. Domark must have paid money for this, and then thought, yeah, we can port this to every system under the sun. And you end up with this. It's not even a game that's completely terrible, it's just lame. I've seen worse. There's a game in here. I managed to play it without getting completely bored, but not particularly good. Moving over the Specky, and we've got these lovely digitised graphics showing all the characters that we saw on the Amiga, which is really nice. Didn't get that on the C64, so getting off to a good start. Nice level of presentation. I do like this tune as well. It's a really nice tune. And I have to say, I've had a few problems loading this image on my SD card. I ended up having to create separate images on my on an emulator first, and then load it into my Spectrum because it wasn't running properly. And so we've got digitized graphics on the Spectrum, but it's a bit of a mess. Well, yeah. On the one hand, I'm looking at digitized graphics going, oh, it's nice to see digitized graphics. And then I'm moving the joystick around and it's slow and laggy and annoying, and movements, well, it just seems to be at random, really. So that's level 1 cleared. I've skipped forward a bit ahead there. Oh, we don't get the forklift on the Spectrum. Grudge match. Well, the music's good. I do like the music here on the Spectrum. It's quite atmospheric. And the computer's 1. So, are you loser? You will die. It's got the obviously we do get the objects on. Oh, he's hit me. Poor old Specky's really struggling here to do all this. And, oh, I can't get off the edge of the screen. It's... I'm managing to hit him, and there's lots of colour clash going. Oh, he's throwing a thing at me. I do like the splashes of red, even if there is colour clash with them. That's quite nice. I managed to throw him now. And it does scale. It does scale. If you go backwards and the other characters in the foreground, it does scale properly, like the arcade. Again, that's putting lots of strain on the CPU, though. The poor old Specky's having to do a lot of work, which explains his abysmal frame rate. Forward to level 3. And they really do like that barbecues now, don't they? And there's objects lying around, like the knives, but they're nearly impossible to pick up on the Spectrum. I jumped accidentally there because I was trying to pick up... I'm still trying to pick up that knife. Oh, thing thrown at me. It's nearly impossible. It's nearly impossible to get any movement at all. You press the button, something happens. It's eventually, and you're not quite sure what movement you've done. I'm just trying to pick that up. I've got it. Right now, swing back round. I mean, what even happened there? Now, do I have the knife? Don't I have the knife? I've got no idea. Just absolutely terrible. Right, so I forwarded this on. We're now fighting CC Rider. And I've just activated the second player who can join at any time. And look at the slowdown. I've got no one to play a second player. I just wanted to demonstrate just how much more the game slows down when you bring in the second player. This really goes to a crawl. This isn't good. Why bother? It's absolutely terrible. Over to the Amstrad. So let's see what they've done on the CPC. And it's looking and sounding very similar to the Spectrum. So on the CPC, at least we have that Spectrum music, which is really nice. But on the CPC, of course, you've got the 3 channels spread across 2 speakers, so you get pseudo stereo. Off we go. And this game is a multi-load, by the way, if you've got tape machines on the Spectrum and Amstrad, so keep that in mind. Well, that's not too bad in terms of its demands. I've seen worse. Street Fighter 2 mainly. Oh ho ho! Okay, so we've got the Spectrum graphics, but we've got the lazy Spectrum port slowdown here on the CPC. This is even slower than 2-player mode on the Spectrum. This is dreadful. Oh my. And the fact it's even slow just exposes the gameplay even more. You can see things about to happen. You've got about an hour to preempt what's going to happen. You press the joystick, something might happen. It might not. On the upside, I seem to be doing quite well here, although, frankly, I've got plenty of time to think about it. Oh dear. I was going to say, couldn't they optimise this for the CPC properly, but frankly, even if it was as fast as the Spectrum, it'd still be no good. Record KO. Well, if I achieve one thing this year, it's a record KO on the Amstrad version of Pitfighter. Totally studly brutality bonus. Oh dear, this is rubbish. Absolute tat. Why did the programmers put their names on the title screen? You'd be ashamed of this, surely. If you're professional, you'd be going, oh, I don't want anyone to know I've done this rubbish. Don't, take my name off it. But no, there they are on the title screen, bold as brass. So we're fighting Angel again. Even worse than the Spectrum because it's slower. Oh dear. Well, at least you don't have the colour clash in the CPC, although the colour choices are, well, weird, to say the least. I mean, I'm blue. Angel's black, which is better. It's... well, there's a power pill thing down there that came out of that box. If I can manage to pick it up. Come on, pick it up! Pick it up! Pick it up! Come on! Pick it up! Yes! I picked it up! Right, I got power up. Right, now I get extra power when I hit the enemy. And I'm flashing red. Which possibly seems to marginally slow this down even more. Like barbecue / bar stool is in the way. Oh, horrible, horrible, horrible. Why? Why is this happening on my Amstrad? Have I mentioned the music's good? Because it's the only thing I can think to say about this tat. Right, so let's get rid of this rubbish on the CPC and go over to the Sega Master System. Sadly, also by Domark, but luckily not ported by Tech. So I've got fairly high hopes. It's written by or developed by the Kremlin. And a couple of years after the original game, I think 1992. High scores, Pitfighter, show no mercy. Are you tough? And then the name of the programmers. So off we go. I don't think any of these digitised or they've been hand drawn. So we'll pick Kato. Again, just get the Pink Panther link, really. So wondering what this is going to look like. Digitised graphics or C64 style? Oh, tiny, tiny, tiny graphics. Oh, my goodness. Oh. How small are these sprites? It's... Goodness me. Are these the smallest sprites I've ever seen in a fighting game? Oh. It's... Why have they done it? Is this technical reason? Is this because Sega didn't like the level of violence in Pitfighter and this has been sanitised? Or a mix of both? They move around fast, but then again they're tiny, so it's no real challenge for the hardware. It's not really Pitfighter, is it? I mean, if C64 Pitfighter really wasn't Pitfighter, this definitely isn't Pitfighter. At least the Spectrum and Amstrad versions are Pitfighter. They're absolutely rubbish Pitfighter, but they're Pitfighter. This just isn't Pitfighter, it's something else. It reminds me a bit of No Exit on the Amstrad GX4000, except that had larger graphics. We do get the forklift truck though. We do get the forklift truck, so we can take that as a something. On to match 2. There can only be one. Is this Highlander? There can only be one. You don't even get the crowd around you. We're in a bar, but there's no baying mob around you, which is one of the Pitfighter things again. And yeah, it's utterly rubbish on the Master System. So Pitfighter, an arcade game I have lots of problems with because I think it just ushered in an era of realistic violence in computer games that we probably didn't need. If you like that kind of thing, then the Amiga version is faithful to the arcade. It looks very similar, it plays very similar. As I say, if you like that kind of thing, moving across the 8-bit versions, where we start with the C64, which isn't Pitfighter, it's some other game with Pitfighter on the title screen. It probably benefits from it, actually. It's not a terrible fighting game, it's just not any good. The Spectrum and Amstrad versions are Pitfighter, they're demonstrably Pitfighter. They are trying to ape the arcade. They have the original graphics, the original digitised graphics. They are slow as anything. The Spectrum version is slow, the Amstrad version is arthritic. They are ugly because the graphics are badly digitised and the CPU doesn't have enough power to push it all around. And there's not enough colours to do it justice as well. And with the laggy response and the rubbish gameplay, the versions are absolutely terrible. The Sega Master System, I don't know what game I've been looking at there. It says Pitfighter on the box, but goodness knows what the actual game is. Absolutely tiny sprite fighter. If you'd paid £25-30 for that, you'd be feeling pretty ripped off. Then again, you'd be feeling pretty ripped off for $10.99 for a Spectrum tape. Pitfighter was a lamentable arcade game that opened the doors to so much tat like Mortal Kombat. We didn't need it. I certainly didn't want it. and I certainly don't want this rubbish on my home computers. Pitfighter really is the pits.